Welcome to the What You Don't Know podcast, brought to you by the Know Like Trust Report, a simple, actionable survey that asks the most important questions. I'm Teresa Nichols. I am honored to have our guest today, Kimberly Todd with KLT Educational Services. Kimberly, can you share a little bit? And by the way, my cat is in the background, so that's Nika. She's just enjoying the curtains. Kimberly, share with us what you do. I know you started this business. This is your business. Tell us about KLT Educational Services.
All right. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, from wherever you are. Yes, I am Kimberly Todd. I am the owner and CEO of KLT Educational Services, which is an educational service that has been birthed after being an educator or in the education field for almost 38 years. I felt a
Wow.
need that because I've been an educator who has had out of the box non-traditional settings in order to provide educational services, um, we came with the development of KLT, which is Kindred Learning Tailored. And
Nice.
so we are educational services that provide coaching, tutoring, services in terms of any type of coaching, whether it's family coaching, individual coaching, life coaching,
Wow.
transformation. The transformation comes from the fact of everybody is a caterpillar, and eventually we all have to go through the stages of a caterpillar, which means we go through that critical metamorphosis. And
Wow.
once we've gone through that metamorphosis, we transform. And what do we transform? We transform into a beautiful butterfly. And so the transformation is changing the mindset, but we're changing the mindset in order that we may get to the next level where we need to go.
Wow. That's absolutely amazing. How does feedback play into what you do? And I'm going to go back a little bit because you said you work with children and adults. So, sometimes that transformation can happen early in your life, and sometimes maybe you need it to happen later in your life, which is crazy to think about that. And I imagine
Absolutely.
they're two completely different kinds of coaching. But tell me just a little bit, well, anything you want about feedback and how important that is to your coaching and what you do.
So the difference in let me clarify. So basically with KLT Educational Services, there are children who I focus more so on the tutoring part of them. But we need to understand what coaching is. Coaching is about teaching and instruction. So what a tutoring may look like for a student may look totally different from an adult. But when we think of the premises of being lifetime learners, we think about we're always trying to get to the educational level of just continuing to learn. It has to be different. And so when you talk about the feedback for children who are getting tutored, and you're talking about feedback for adults, or it may be children, it may be our senior saints, it can be anybody that basically is willing to, number one, be able to take the constructive criticism and use it, not most, and some people would take it as a negative, but we really need to take it as a positive, because if it's something that we need to hear or we need to do or change in order to, I would say the best way to do some corrective processing, then
Wow.
we need to take the feedback with a different approach,
Yeah.
because it doesn't always have to be negative. And sometimes we get on the fence, but by
Right.
getting on the fence, we're not being really open to receive what may be the best thing to help us
Yeah.
to
So
improve.
true. Yeah. Have you noticed a difference with children? Is it easier to give children that that constructive criticism? Is it easier to give adults the constructive criticism? Have you noticed a difference there?
I would say it's a difference, but then I would say it's all in the way in which you approach. I have the thinking, and I stand on it, to say you catch more bees with honey. And so when you put a little honey on the feedback or the criticism or the whatever you're trying to get across that may need some, I would say, creative change, or some changes that are productive, then it's the way in which you put the information out there. I'm a big stickler on building rapports. And because I build rapports with my children, and for those who don't understand that, it's the point of making sure that I have a good relationship. The way in which I talk, the way in which I speak. Um, I would say that's one of my gifts of having the gift of gab to um, meet people where they are, to build that rapport. And so when you have the rapport with, whether it's the children or the adults, they're more receptive to what you're saying. And they may be more or less where they might turn a deaf ear. They may not want to turn a deaf ear because they know that it's coming with something else behind it, something more meaningful, love, compassion, something that it will benefit them or be helpful to them.
Wow, I love that. The word rapport is amazing. That's such a
Mm-hmm.
great word. And I have been trying to get the right words for know, like, trust. And I mean, rapport is an amazing word. So I will very likely use that later. So thank you so much for that because it's such a great word that I kind of forgot about. So that's awesome. So, what about you yourself? Like, let's say that you got some feedback over time from your clients. Do you have any good examples of when you've gotten feedback, even as you were maybe building your organization and you added something in? Because it sounds like you you've had to make your own, changes to say, "Hey, I know how this is going to work. I know how I'm going to keep clients longer," that kind of thing. Do you have any thoughts on, any kind of feedback that you've gotten over time that has helped you with that?
Well, I would say, number one, that you have to be open. You have to be open to receive feedback. One of the things for me that I've learned is choosing wise counsel, but also understanding someone's perspective. And someone may be able to give you a different perspective in terms of um, what they may add to your, I would say, vision. Because number one, you got to think about your vision. Um, Whatever my vision is, what is given to me in who I am, I have to remember that by me being a faith walker, if it's given to me, everybody may not understand why I do what I do. But in the point of understanding that when I go to when people give feedback or they give some information, you still got to sift it with wheat sometimes, because some feedback may apply to you and some may not. Sometimes we say, well, when I did it, well, sometimes it may be when you did it, but if you did it 20 years ago and we have you got to change your mindset. So you got to be open. And so even when I've had to take the tough criticism or the tough feedback, I'm very passionate. I'm very aggressive at times. When it comes to children, people will know. They'll be like, okay, you know what? Gosh, she's not going to play with you about those children. So if I see, there was some feedback that I remember getting from an administrator, and she was like, Kimberly, um, you are great at what you do, but right here, this piece that you went from 0 to 10, and I was just like, yeah, I did. But when I honestly got home and think about what I'm trying to represent and who I'm representing, um, it was the point that I stormed out of the meeting. And when I stormed out of the meeting, my own conviction as far as what I'm portraying or trying to do, I went back the next day and apologized for storming out the meeting. And I readdressed the situation from a point of view of trying to get them to understand that I just want things to be in a fair way. And it was a tough pill to swallow, but it reminded me about the whole point of submission, because no matter who we all have to submit to something or someone. And when we have that authority over us, we can agree to disagree, but that doesn't mean that we still can't recognize the feedback. And the feedback in the end was good for me. because it made me change how I deal with people in terms of it.
That's really amazing that you were able to take what that person said and make it your own and utilize it and make changes from it. So that's really awesome. And thank you for that story. That was so great. I know that you work with a lot of people with this coaching and even with the tutoring. So do you have some examples of when you had to give really tough feedback and how that worked out?
Actually, I can give it, I actually can give two instances. I can give it from the standpoint having someone who was an older person that I was coaching. And when it came time for me to give them feedback, I got a little pushback. I got
Mm,
a little pushback. And one of the things with coaching that I want to stress, we don't coach to fix people. We coach my own, and this is a chemology piece.
fun.
But I coach people, and part of what I do as a coach is I hold them accountable to hold themselves accountable for what they're trying to do in this journey. So I'm walking alongside of them. I'm
Okay.
not to fix it. I'm to just say, hey, you told me this, and this is what I'm going to hold you to. So even from that standpoint, that's a little feedback that I have to remind them of. And they're looking like, well, you're not gonna fix it today for me? No, I'm not gonna fix it today for you. What does it look like for you to get to the other side?
Very cool.
So
Yeah.
that's one piece. And then with the even with my students, whether my students, like I said, they can be children, they can be teenagers, they can be adults. When it comes to the point of I can give a feedback of someone that I know that literacy is important to me. Reading is important to me. And so sometimes when we look at somebody's writing something and you're trying to show them or you're trying to give them feedback about their writing to say, oh, you know what? You used the wrong text or you used the wrong word in what you were trying to, excuse me, I just lost my train of thought, what you're trying to get out in terms of your thoughts.
Yeah.
And they'll say, no, that's how I spell it. No, that's not how you spell it. And so that's the feedback in terms of going back to the teaching part. And so sometimes, even as adults, we have to realize that those things come in. And when those things come in, even with reading and writing and everything, the things that I'm learning some things now as a lifelong learner that I remembered as an educator I never even heard of. And so now this new knowledge that I have, and now I'm having to provide feedback, it makes it all the more imperative to them, but then imperative to me because we're learning together. And so
Nice.
that's the part. Feedback will cause you to learn with someone else because you know what? You're never too old to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, amen. That absolutely. I would totally agree that you're never too old to make improvements and to learn. So, yeah, so absolutely. I had another thought when you said that. Oh, about the no like trust report itself. It's interesting because it's going to take people who say, I want feedback, give me feedback. So, like you said, hey, I'm your coach and you want me to help you. So, you gotta be open to this. So, with a no like trust report, you gotta be open to what people are saying on that. And so, if you share it with people, you have to be ready for whatever is going to come through on it. And like you
Absolutely.
said, of course, you got to, take it with wheat. You said take it with wheat. So, yeah, but if you didn't get it at all, you wouldn't know
What's
whatever it is
working?
that's going to come through it.
Right.
So, whatever you get out of it is amazing. Even if you get nothing, it's better to do it than to not. Than to get that feedback, to go through that process is so important. So yeah, so thank you for that example. So we talked a little bit about no like trust. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that from your perspective in the teaching world,
Okay.
how important know, like, trust is to you as an educator. And even if you want to go back to when you were, in a classroom, what that was like. And I know we had talked about it a little bit about how you hadn't heard that phrase, but that you lived it anyway. I thought that was really interesting that you said that. So let's talk about know, like, trust specifically, and what that means to you.
Well, it's really interesting me because it was to the point of, as an educator, um, I can take it back to the point of the kind of educators that I had in my life.
Yeah,
I had
absolutely.
people who poured into me. I had
Wow.
people who I can remember. Oh, this is a good feedback. I returned to school at the age of 37, and returning to school at the age of 37, I was in a I am a Spelman
Wow.
graduate. And so, as a Spelman graduate, I was almost maybe 3 weeks um, about from graduation, and I had a disagreement with one of my professors.
Okay.
And in terms of trying to handle it, I said, okay, you know what? I have another credit. I have other credits to go to another subject or as far as area of education that I can get my degree in that area. Well, it was so
Okay.
funny because I went to talk to one of my senior advisors, and I have the utmost respect and trust for her. And when I told her, I said, I'm just ready to go ahead and I can graduate with another degree in a different area. She politely told me, girl, if you don't go get some water and take yourself to class so you can go on and graduate. And I just kind of laughed, but that was the feedback. And her basically, that trust that I have for her, that respect that I have for her, was the point of saying, you, as hard as you didn't work to get to this point, by this time I'm about to turn 40, I'm about to graduate. It's like you are not about to just give up on this goal
Wow.
because you had an issue with someone.
Yeah.
Shake it off, go get you some water, replenish, and go on and go to class so you can graduate.
Wow, that's
So
cool.
that in itself, and so for me, as that, even at 37, I've always had those relationships, and so as an educator going into the classroom, building other relationships with children and families, I try to do the same thing because that was who makes me who I am. That when my parents are coming to me to seek services, whether it's coaching, whether it's education, whether it's parenting, whether any of those areas that KOT has as a service, they're coming to me or coming back to me or bringing me the next generation of their family members to me because we built that relationship, we have that trust, we have all those things that make us connectively working together.
That's great. Go into that a little bit, because you said that you had built that know, like, trust, which is really funny that your organization is called KLT, and that you had not really heard of the know, like, trust, the kind of the quote, the know, like, trust quote. So that's really cool. But so what about, like, how do you deal with this liking thing? Because I think some people, they take it real personal, and it's like just kind of a weird emotional term. But it sounds like you've embraced that. So what do you think about that
So
particularly?
tell me what you mean in terms of elaborate a little bit more on the like piece.
Absolutely, yeah. So how I think about it is just likability. It's not like, do you like me? It's more, does somebody put themselves out there in a way that they are able to be liked, that they are
Mm,
likable. It's kind of how
mm,
I think about it. And you said parents and children, and then you have adult clients. How do you embrace this like part of doing what you do?
The first word that comes to mind for me is being authentic.
Yeah, that's really
And
nice.
if
Yeah.
you can't be authentic, and the one thing that I offer to anyone who meets me or encounters me is number one, I don't meet a stranger.
Hmm.
Number two is the point of being able to have those qualities of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. Now, it may come a time where I've had many different situations where I've had to wear many hats with community engagement, family and community engagement. And so my approach has been to the point that you may not like me, but we can respect each other.
Hmm.
But the other side of it is you may make up in your mind that you don't want to like me as a person, but what I stand for in terms of respect, being authentic, my ethics, work ethics, and everything, trying to be fair, and I put those traits out to get to the point of saying there's a common goal, and if there's a common goal that we are working on together, whether you like me or not, we have to learn to agree to disagree. But in the point of once we get to that point of being able to have a workable relationship, it's not about whether or not you like me or you receive me, but in a sense it is, because I still want you to understand and receive me for what I'm doing to represent families, children, community, and everything. A lot of times, as an educator, as an advocate, I've always tried to let people know, hey, you know what? I'm on your team. Um, if I'm on your team, believe me, I'll go out of my way to help you and to do what is right in order for you. Some situations haven't always been easy. I've had some really tough situations, but in terms when people have gotten to the point of really trying to see what I'm about, a lot of times it changes. I've seen we talk about transformation. You know, I can remember time once again. I had a tough situation, and the mother didn't know who I was at the time. She only knew me as a capacity as an educator. But the interesting part was you never know how people's paths are going to cross. The world is different, so you never know. Well, she knew me as an educator, and then she had to deal with me as a coach later on.
Oh, okay.
And for her, it was like, wow, she really is on my, so one situation doesn't have to be the situation that leads you in a continuing path. You may have a bad, it could be somebody's bad day, and in that bad day,
Absolutely.
and they may find out later on. Once again, you catch more bees with honey, because you might have, that person might have had a rough day, but if I'm embracing or coming to them in a different way to maybe be supportive of them, that unlike could very well become a like and a trust.
Yeah, that's really nice. I love the word authentic too. That's a really, really nice word. Yeah.
That's my favorite. That would be
Yeah.
my favorite, because I want people to know, you know what? I'm coming, and I use the term coming straight from the hip just means that I'm a sharpshooter. I'm just going to come straight out. But when people see that you're authentic and they see your passion and they say who you really are, they'll be more apt to receive you, and they'll be more apt to want to be able to work with you. My children get it. My parents get it. You know, like I said, I've had to wear many different hats, even in what I do. And so, I'm not perfect, but in my imperfectness, I can still be authentic.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and a part of the know, like, trust report is this idea of, are you allowing people to get to know you? And yesterday was so weird. I I pick up garbage. That's what I do. If I'm walking somewhere and there's garbage, I pick it up. And usually I look around to see if there's a garbage can close by because I don't want to be carrying weird, I mean, particularly after COVID, like I don't want to be carrying weird stuff. But if I see garbage on the ground and I know there's a garbage can close, I will pick it up and throw it away. So it was a piece of paper in the road. I was walking to a neighbor's house and I flipped it over and it was a one-page sheet about a teacher. And it was going to a home And it was saying, I'm your kid's teacher. I'm married. I have a child. I went to such and such university. I've been teaching for 6 years. My favorite color is purple. I have a dog. I like to go to the movies. It was really just a way for this teacher to start this know, like, and trust process with this parent. And it gave me the chills. I was like, why do I have this in my hand right now? How did I get this? And I'm going to post it on LinkedIn, because it was so cool. It was literally this kind of last ditch effort for this teacher to say, I want these parents to know, like, and trust me. And what was on it too was a phone number and an email address, which was kind of the trust aspect. It was like, that if you need to get a hold of me, if your child says anything, you can get a hold of me. Here it is right here. Everything right now that you need to know right now to like me and trust me is right here on this one sheet of paper. It was so amazing. And I was like, it was just meant to be. I had to be there. And it was that authenticness and genuineness and the rapport, building the rapport on a piece of paper. She was doing this, and it was so cool. It was just really amazing. So yeah, everything just kind of came in together. It was really cool. She even had a picture of herself and, and our family. It was really cool.
And
So
that's big. That's big. That's big. And kudos to her because I'm that type of teacher too. So, but it's the point. There is an aspect of teacher-parent relationships, but the other side of that is when we constantly think about it. If I'm the parent and I'm putting my child in the care of this teacher, I want to be able to have some trust because I want to at least know that number one, that the teacher is human.
yeah, yeah,
That the teacher, that life happens for each of one of us. And so even when it's the point of being able to understand, if mom is coming in, she's had a rough morning, she's agitated or whatever, she's putting her child off, we're the teacher who's going to have to deal with that. So when you build a rapport and you have that rapport so that that parent feels confident enough to say, hey, rather than push him in, she's going to say, hey, you know what? We're having a rough morning. He may give you a rough day. Please let me know. Just that's one of those things that whoever, and I'm thinking from the standpoint, I hate that whoever that paper was supposed to go to yesterday didn't get that piece
yeah,
just to know. But hopefully there will be another way that parent or that child will be able to know that there is a teacher who's willing to go out and be authentic, but be able to know that they'll like, and they'll trust to be that person in that village that's helping that child to be successful.
absolutely. Yeah, my thought was that they had probably received it. It just like fell out of the car or something. I was like, I'm pretty sure they've already read it. I feel like they did. Although the phone number, contact information, hopefully they'll have it through the school somehow. But it was weird too because I didn't know whose it was. I was like, I could go knocking door to door, like who does this belong to? So yeah, so I felt the same thing. But it was such a great tool.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of the same like with the know, like, trust report is that it's a tool that you can use to understand more about your peers, the people that matter to you most, and if they know, like, and trust you and how
Mm-hmm.
you're doing on those levels. So yeah, so it was really wild that that piece of paper came into my hands. It was just crazy. So
But that's confirmation. We'll
yeah,
we'll count that as
yeah, I
confirmation
know. It was
for
like,
the importance of what it is
yeah,
because it's valuable.
yeah,
No, like trust
serendipitous.
has value to it that um, we take for granted, but it can be a very powerful tool in all aspects of anything, whether it's just life in general.
Yeah.
because we all have to have those healthy relationships. And like I said, you may not necessarily always like what someone says or anything. One of the things that I've raised my child, but just children in general, even when they've been in my classroom, is they'll say, "I hate such and such," and I'm like, "Okay, that's a strong word. How about it's the point that if you don't hate it, but how about you just don't like it rather than hating it?"
Yeah.
So, it's the point of being able to understand that. So, being able to do that is definitely a difference in terms of building what you need to build for a relationship.
Well,
So,
let's talk about kids just really quickly. We hadn't gotten on that at all, but I was curious about giving kids feedback and how they respond, because the no like trust report is specifically, for adults. I hadn't thought about using it for kids, but how does that work for you? And, if you ever have found something where you thought, I need to talk to this child about this and give them some feedback, have you ever had to do that?
I've had in the point of being able to, I mean, with kids, a lot of times I'm one of those that I I like to inspire children to have conversations. And so when it's the point of building a rapport with a child, a lot of times I believe in accountability partners as far as parents and everything, because sometimes a parent can be so close to a child that when they're so close to a child, that child, when something is really, really going on, they may not want to talk to their parent. So then you have accountability partners that you make an agreement with another parent who knows you and know how you raise your children, says, hey, you know what? If it's one of those things that if my child needs to talk to you, can I count on you being there for that person? And so with that, it's all the more that when kids come and talk to me, I like to get to know kids. And so I'm a kid at heart. And so I use my gifts and my creativity in terms of getting to know them. But it's also the point that, like, say, for instance, as a teacher, even when you're doing journal writing or if you're doing something that you want the kids to, and I feel that even that when kids are early writing, whatever way that they need to write or get out whatever they're dealing with, that we use the different tools. And so with a child who has to, if I see something that's alarming or something that they say or whatever, we have conversations about it. But we have conversations about it, and I use any tools. If it's a book, if it's a story, if it's a song. I have a song for everything. So I use different tools to be able to meet the children. So for me, the know, like, trust with a child is so much different because it's not really different, but it's unique because I'm able to use more to try to build that. And it sometimes I don't get everybody, but even to the point, once again, they may not get to the point that they really are like gun ho with me, but they like me.
Mhm.
And so that's the key, because it's the point of being able to when I have children that are in my care, now I want the children to feel that they can trust me, but I also want the parents to know that, guess what, she is someone trustworthy to take care of my children, because I want to be able to provide for somebody what I want somebody to provide for me. For my daughter is 30, but I had great people who, as educators, extended mamas, uncles, aunties, whatever, who were able to provide that for my daughter. And even for me, having been in a blended family before I had my own biological child, it was the point of I wanted those people to know, okay, you know what? They may not be my biological child, but I am someone that you can trust that they will be in the best care. I will look after them and try to do the best thing to be an extension of you, not to replace you. And so even when my kids come to me, whether they come for tutoring, whether they were in my classroom, I always let their parents know, I'm just an extension of you.
Nice. Wow. That's amazing. That's really great. Well,
So
today we talked about so many really great words: being authentic and rapport and respect. Respect keeps coming up. Before I even started the interviews, I thought, I wonder if I need to get respect into the Know Like Trust survey. And I didn't, just because Know Like Trust is, its own thing without the word respect. But it keeps coming up, so that's really interesting. So I'm gonna have to see what I can do about that because I think it is a really good word. Yeah. I kind of think the like and the respect are, I don't know, maybe if somebody was confused, I would say, well, just think about it as the word respect instead of like. Maybe it would be okay to intertwine those a little bit. But
Because you get the combination. That's a tough. That could be a tough one.
yeah.
And when I say that that can be a tough one, because sometimes somebody may say to somebody, I like you, but I haven't got to the point that I respect you yet. And a
Yeah.
lot of times people feel that respect is earned. And so, that's part of the process, though. That's part of the process that people may come in to me, even as a coach. She seems like a nice person. But until they start walking that journey with me and realize that I am trustworthy, and that's a key word right there, because trustworthy is another piece. If they feel that I am trustworthy, then they will be more apt to get to know me, to get to like me, than to want to respect what's coming out my mouth, because they know that it's a positive more than a negative, and it's not something to take away from what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
that's really good. Yeah. Thank you. That's great. Amazing. So thank you, Kimberly, for being with us. Kimberly with KLT Educational Services. What is your, is it kltedservices.com, right?
you actually have KLT edservices@gmail.com, or you can look at kindredsource.com.
Nice.